We found them buried under earth. The discovery was completely accidental.
We were a small team of geologists working on a deep earth excavation project in the remote deserts of Central Asia. The initial goal was simple: extract rare minerals and study underground rock formations. Nobody expected to find anything unusual, let alone something that would change our understanding of history and life itself.
It started with a strange reading on the seismic sensors.
There was a hollow cavity deep beneath the surface, much larger than a natural cave. At first, we thought it was a mining void or a collapsed underground structure. But as we prepared for a controlled descent, the temperature readings and air composition didn't match anything we had encountered before. There was oxygen, yes, but something else lingered, something almost unnatural. By the time we reached the first chamber, our headlamps revealed walls carved with strange markings. They weren't like anything humans had made. No script, no symbols from any known culture. The lines were sharp, deliberate, and symmetrical in ways that seemed almost organic.
We felt watched, though there was no one there. Then we saw them.
At first, they were shadows, lying beneath layers of dust and earth. But when we cleared the soil, we realized these weren't just skeletons. They were perfectly preserved bodies, unlike anything human. Their skin was pale, almost translucent. Limbs were elongated, hands had extra joints, and their heads were slightly larger than ours, with deep, empty eye sockets that seemed to absorb the light. Some of the bodies were arranged as if in slumber. Others were in strange postures, almost ritualistic, as if placed there intentionally. We called headquarters immediately, but the signal was weak.
Phones didn't work that deep underground.
We radioed what we could, but even the voice on the other end sounded hesitant, unsure of how to respond.
Nobody had ever reported anything like this.
We weren't supposed to find aliens, not under the earth, not anywhere. As we documented the bodies, we noticed something chilling. Every chamber seemed to have a different type of being. Some resembled humans more than others, but all had subtle differences. Extra fingers, unusual rib structures, or long spines. It was as if the earth itself had been a graveyard for multiple species.
The thought made our stomachs turn.
Then came the noises. At first, it was faint, a distant scraping, like metal on stone. Then whispers, almost unintelligible, echoing through the tunnels.
We weren't alone.
The bodies, they were awake, or something had awakened them. One of the researchers, Dr. Arlen, froze mid-step, staring at a particularly large figure. Its chest moved, imperceptibly, just enough for him to realize it was breathing. We had to retreat, but the passages seemed to twist and change. Every turn led to a new chamber, a new horror. It was as if the underground network had been designed to trap us, to make sure we never left. And then, in the farthest chamber, we found the largest figure of all, encased in stone yet somehow alive. Its eyes opened slowly, revealing iridescent colors that made the air vibrate.
That's when we understood. These beings were not buried.
They were waiting. The moment the largest being opened its eyes, an unbearable silence filled the chamber. Even the scraping noises we had heard earlier seemed to pause, as if the underground itself was holding its breath. We were frozen, staring at the creature. Its body was massive, easily 3 times the size of a human, with limbs that seemed almost flexible, yet unnervingly strong. Its skin shimmered faintly, as if wet or metallic, reflecting our headlamp beams in strange patterns. Dr. Arlen, who had been closest to it, stepped back, tripping over a piece of rubble. The sound made the creature shift slightly, just enough for us to hear a low, resonant hum coming from deep within its chest. It wasn't a sound we had ever heard before. It was music and voice at the same time, vibrating through the stone floor and into our bones. We tried to communicate, speaking in English, in Russian, in gestures.
Nothing worked. Yet somehow, the being understood us.
Its eyes moved along each of our faces, as if scanning our thoughts. Then, to our astonishment, it extended a limb toward the nearest wall, and the markings there began to glow faintly, illuminating more of the chamber. Symbols, lines, and shapes we hadn't noticed before pulsed in rhythm with its hum.
It was a map.
We realized the underground complex stretched far beyond what our instruments had recorded. There were tunnels, chambers, and vaults spanning kilometers beneath the earth. Some areas were older, the markings faded and cracked, while others glowed with the same strange energy emanating from the being. The map hinted at something deeper, a core of the network, a place that seemed central to all the chambers. Are they alive?" whispered Lena, our youngest researcher, barely audible over the echoing hum. "They have to be," I said, though my voice trembled. "We've seen movement, breathing, thought." Then the whispers returned, louder this time, echoing in the twisting tunnels beyond the chamber.
It wasn't language.
It was sound, but layered, tones overlapping, some high and shrill, some deep and resonant. And then we understood. The whispers were coming from the other bodies. They weren't asleep. They were connected, sharing thoughts, memories, maybe even emotions. Dr. Arlen suggested we move back and regroup.
We can't understand them. We can't predict what they'll do.
We need to record this and get out. But as we turned to leave, the tunnel behind us had changed. Walls that were solid moments ago now twisted into a new passage. It was as if the underground itself was alive, aware of our presence, and unwilling to let us leave so easily.
Panic rose in the group. Phones and GPS were useless.
Every exit we tried led to more chambers, more beings, more glowing symbols.
Then came the first attack.
It wasn't physical, at least not in the way we expected. Dr. Arlen screamed as a wave of pressure hit him, like the weight of the earth itself pressing on his chest.
He collapsed, gasping.
The others held him up, but the effect was spreading: dizziness, nausea, confusion. It was the being's warning, a psychic push that radiated through the tunnels.
They didn't need to touch us.
Their presence alone was enough to bend our bodies and minds.
We realized something terrifying.
These beings had been here for millennia.
They weren't dead.
They were in stasis, waiting for something, or someone, to arrive. And now that we had come, we had triggered their awakening. In a moment of desperate inspiration, I remembered the symbols on the walls. Perhaps they were a language, a way to communicate. Using a flashlight, I traced a line of glowing carvings, mimicking the gestures of the largest being. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the air vibrated again, but this time in a pattern that felt welcoming. One of the smaller bodies shifted and rose to its knees, watching us with large, black eyes. It spoke, not in words, but in images and emotions that flooded my mind. "We have waited.
You have found us. Do you understand?"
I nodded, unable to speak.
My heart pounded.
I realized that the beings weren't hostile by nature. They were guardians, or perhaps keepers, of something buried deep beneath the earth.
Something ancient. Something humans were never meant to disturb. But curiosity had a cost. We had already awakened them.
And the deeper chambers, according to the glowing maps, held secrets that could either save or destroy humanity. Dr. Arlen whispered, "We have to go deeper.
We have no choice.
They want us to see something." And so, with our fears gnawing at our minds, we followed the largest being deeper into the bowels of the earth. Every step revealed more wonders, more horrors. Massive skeletal structures embedded in the rock, walls etched with histories of civilizations we never knew existed, and echoes of voices long forgotten by surface humanity.
We had crossed a line that no one should ever cross.
And whatever lay at the center of this underground world, it was waiting. The tunnels grew narrower as we descended, forcing us to squeeze through jagged rock walls. The glowing symbols along the walls pulsed faintly, guiding our way, or perhaps testing us. Each step deeper into the earth made the air heavier, charged with a strange energy that prickled our skin and made the hair on our arms stand on end. It was impossible to tell if the beings were leading us willingly, or deliberately drawing us into a trap. The largest being moved ahead of us with terrifying grace, limbs bending and stretching unnaturally to navigate the terrain. The smaller ones followed at a distance, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Occasionally, one of them would reach out with a translucent limb to touch the wall, sending ripples through the carvings that caused the symbols to shift and twist into new patterns. "What do you think they are showing us?" Lena whispered, keeping close to me.
Her voice trembled.
"Are they friendly?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But whatever it is, they want us to see it. They are guiding us for a reason." After what felt like hours of twisting tunnels, we emerged into a massive cavern, larger than any natural cave I had ever seen. The ceiling was impossible to make out in the dim glow. It seemed to vanish into darkness. At the center stood a colossal structure, carved from the bedrock itself. It was shaped like a pyramid, but not a pyramid from human history. The angles were slightly off, impossible to replicate, as if designed to resonate with the earth itself. The beings gathered around the structure, forming a circle. The largest one approached the apex and pressed a hand against the stone. Immediately, The carvings on the walls began to glow with an intense, golden light. The air vibrated so strongly that I could feel it in my chest. Images and sounds flooded my mind. Entire civilizations rising and falling, beings unlike humans walking across planets we had never known existed, and a warning repeated in every vision. They come.
Protect. Preserve. Do not awaken.
We staggered backward, overwhelmed by the psychic onslaught. Dr. Arlen collapsed to the ground, muttering, "It's history, all of it. Buried, and waiting." A smaller being floated toward us and placed its hand lightly on my shoulder. The feeling wasn't physical, it was a direct transfer of thought and emotion. I understood then that these beings were archivists, guardians of life across the universe, hiding records and remnants of extinct species beneath the earth to protect them from destruction. They didn't die, I whispered to Lena. They were waiting. Yes, she said, eyes wide. Waiting for someone, or something, to find them. To carry their knowledge. But before we could take it in fully, the ground trembled violently. Dust and small rocks rained from the ceiling. A low, thunderous roar echoed through the cavern, shaking the walls. The glowing carvings flickered and dimmed. From deep tunnels we hadn't explored, shadows emerged, creatures far larger and more aggressive-looking than the ones guiding us. Their eyes burned with hunger, and their limbs ended in sharp, jagged points.
They were not alone down here, Dr. Arlen gasped.
These are the predators, the ones that destroyed everything else. The guiding beings formed a barrier, their bodies merging slightly as if creating a single, shimmering shield. The predators advanced, their movements swift and deadly. The psychic energy in the cavern intensified, almost unbearable. We realized the Guardians weren't just passive archivists, they were fighters, protectors of something far older and more dangerous than humanity could ever imagine. In the chaos, one of the predators lunged toward us. I froze, but the smallest of the Guardians placed a hand on my chest, projecting a shield of force that threw the creature backward. It let out an unearthly shriek, echoing through the tunnels. The largest being turned toward us, its glowing eyes meeting ours. In my mind, I heard a single, clear thought. You must go deeper. Only there can the threat be contained. Only there can the truth be understood. Dr. Arlen looked at me, terror in his eyes. Deeper? We can barely survive this.
But I knew we had no choice. We had been brought here for a purpose.
Whatever lay ahead, the Guardians believed we could endure it. With fear clawing at our minds, we followed them through a hidden passage that led even further into the earth, where darkness and light mingled in ways that defied logic, and where the buried civilizations waited for their stories to finally be heard. The passage narrowed into a tunnel so tight that we had to move single file, pressing our backs against the damp stone. The air grew warmer, heavier, and charged with the same strange energy that had been guiding us. My head throbbed with a mix of excitement and fear, and Lena's breathing came in short, sharp gasps. Even Dr. Arlen, who had faced dangers around the world, looked pale and shaken. The glowing symbols along the walls now formed patterns that resembled circuits or networks, intertwining in impossible geometries. Every step we took seemed to pulse with a heartbeat, syncing with the low hum that had accompanied us since the first chamber. The Guardians moved ahead with deliberate speed, their bodies radiating a calm power, yet somehow alert, ready to respond to any threat. Finally, we reached an immense chamber, unlike anything we had imagined. The walls stretched far beyond our sight, carved with reliefs of beings walking across planets, constructing cities, and interacting with creatures that defied description. At the center lay a massive crystalline structure, half buried in stone, glowing with a faint inner light. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting our terrified faces in distorted forms. This is the core," whispered Dr. Arlen, voice trembling. "Everything else, it all leads here." One of the smaller Guardians floated closer to the crystal, extending a delicate, translucent limb toward its surface. The crystal reacted instantly, sending waves of light rippling across the chamber. Visions flooded our minds, worlds consumed by fire, civilizations wiped out by unseen forces, and entire species hidden here, beneath the earth, to preserve their legacy. The Guardians weren't just protectors, they were archivists of life itself. Then the crystal pulsed, and a new vision struck us all simultaneously. A species approaching extinction, hunted by a predator we had glimpsed in the previous cavern. The Guardians had trapped them here to protect them, but not all could survive. The images shifted to humans, showing fragments of our own early history entwined with these buried beings.
The truth hit me like a blow. Humans were not alone in shaping the earth.
We were only one part of a larger story, hidden beneath layers of soil and stone.
A sudden rumble shook the chamber.
The predators from the previous cavern had followed us. They poured into the chamber like a black tide, their jagged limbs scraping against the crystal. The guardians moved to defend the core, merging their forms into a towering, radiant shield. The air quaked with psychic energy, the pressure so intense it felt as if our bones would shatter.
Dr. Arlen shouted, "We can't fight them.
We need to help them protect it." I hesitated for a moment, but then I understood. The guardians were guiding us, not just showing us history. They were entrusting us with it. The crystal pulsed again, this time projecting a single thought into my mind. Use your minds.
Understand. Merge.
Fear surged, but I reached out with my consciousness, focusing on the crystal, the guardians, and the predators. Images, thoughts, and emotions intertwined in a dizzying torrent. I felt the lives of countless species, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the relentless hunger of the predators. Slowly, the guardians taught me how to channel the psychic energy of the core. I could push, repel, shield. Together with the team, we created a barrier of our own, expanding the guardians' protective field. The predators shrieked, their forms striking the barrier but unable to break through. We could feel them weakening, their rage turning into confusion. The guardians' hum merged with ours, forming a resonance that shook the very foundation of the earth.
In that moment, we were no longer just humans.
We were part of something larger, keepers of a buried legacy, wielding the power of knowledge and memory itself. Finally, the predators retreated, slinking back into the tunnels, and the chamber fell silent. The crystal pulsed softly, the visions fading, leaving only the sense of immense responsibility. The guardians turned to us, eyes glowing with gratitude. For the first time, I sensed something like relief emanating from them. Dr. Arlen collapsed to his knees. We survived, but what now? The largest being extended a limb toward us. Images flooded our minds again. The buried worlds, the civilizations lost to time, and the need to protect them. Then came a single, clear thought. Go back.
Teach. Preserve. Guard what you have found. We knew then that our lives had changed forever. We could never return to ordinary research.
We had seen the buried history of life on Earth, witnessed beings older and wiser than humanity, and survived predators that should never have been unleashed. The Guardians had entrusted us with knowledge and power we barely understood. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, the core waited, alive and vigilant, its secrets preserved by those who had lain in silence for millennia. As we began our ascent, retracing the tunnels with a new purpose, the chamber faded behind us. The glowing symbols dimmed, the crystal's light softened, and the Guardians returned to their silent vigil. The earth above seemed unchanged, ordinary, but we knew better. Beneath every footstep, beneath every rock, lay the buried history of life itself, waiting for those brave, or foolish, enough to uncover it. And we had found it. The climb back to the surface was exhausting. Our bodies ached from hours of crawling, climbing, and navigating the twisting underground tunnels. The air grew cooler as we ascended, and with every step, the psychic weight of the core seemed to lessen, but the memories and visions we carried were impossible to forget. When we finally emerged into the pale light of the desert morning, the world above seemed unchanged. The sun was just rising over the dunes, casting long shadows on the sand, but to us, everything had changed. We weren't the same people who had descended into the earth. We had witnessed civilizations older than humanity, guardians older than time, and predators that had once hunted entire species to extinction. The ordinary world felt fragile, like a thin veneer over something far more profound. Dr. Arlen dropped to the sand, staring at the sky. It's all still there. Life above, oblivious. No one would believe us. Lena shivered.
We can't keep this to ourselves.
The world, they need to know, even if they don't understand.
I shook my head.
Do we even understand it?
We barely survived.
What we saw, what we experienced, it's bigger than anything humanity has ever known. If we try to explain it, people will either think we're insane or, worse, they'll want to exploit it.
We knew she was right.
The buried beings had entrusted us with knowledge, but the world above was not ready. Our discovery could ignite greed, fear, or even war. Yet, we also knew that keeping it secret forever might be a betrayal of what the Guardians had shown us. In the following days, we attempted to document everything. Drawings, recordings, sketches of the symbols, and descriptions of the beings. But no camera, no recorder, could truly capture the psychic energy or the vastness of the underground network. The more we tried, the more we realized some knowledge was not meant to be contained in words or pictures.
It had to be experienced.
Despite this, we managed to compile a record, enough to prove that something extraordinary existed beneath the earth. But we kept the location secret, burying our notes deep within secure research files. Only we knew the truth. The earth was a resting place, a sanctuary for beings and civilizations long forgotten, hidden from the surface world. Then came the dreams. Every night, we were drawn back underground, reliving the tunnels, the chambers, and the glowing crystal. The Guardians appeared in our dreams, communicating in thought and emotion, reminding us of our responsibility. Preserve.
Protect.
Do not awaken the predators again. Even in sleep, the weight of the buried world pressed upon us.
We began to notice subtle changes in ourselves.
We could sense vibrations in the earth, detect subtle shifts in energy. Sometimes, the whispers of the Guardians echoed faintly in our minds. It was as if part of their consciousness had merged with ours, connecting us forever to the buried network. We weren't just researchers anymore, we were its stewards. Our public life continued, but with careful secrecy. We presented papers on ordinary geology, mineral formations, and seismic anomalies. The world never suspected the truth beneath our words. Only we knew the full story, and that knowledge became a bond between us, unspoken but unbreakable. Months later, we returned to the excavation site, unearthing the first signs of the underground chambers to ensure nothing above disturbed them.
The desert was calm, silent. No predators, no disturbances.
The Guardians remained buried, their presence faint but constant, waiting for the day someone worthy might need them again. I stood alone at the edge of the excavation, staring down into the earth. The memory of the crystal pulsed in my mind, reminding me that the world was far larger and older than humanity could ever imagine. We had found them buried under the earth, and in doing so, we had discovered not only a hidden history but a responsibility that would shape the rest of our lives. And in the quiet desert wind, I could almost hear a faint hum, welcoming us back into a secret world that had been waiting for millennia. Life above ground began to press in on us, relentless and unaware. Even though we had buried our detailed notes and limited our discussions, rumors of our unusual excavation had spread. Other researchers, private companies, and even government agencies had begun asking questions we could not answer without risking exposure of the buried network.
Dr. Arlen was the first to warn us.
Curiosity is dangerous, he said one evening as we sat in a dimly lit tent near the excavation. If they dig too deep, if someone finds even a fragment of what we saw, there's no telling what could happen.
I nodded, though anxiety gnawed at me.
We're Guardians now, in a sense.
The responsibility is ours. We can't let the world reach them. Not yet. Lena shivered.
But hiding it forever, are we even allowed to do that?
The Guardians trusted us to preserve knowledge.
What if the world needs it? Her words echoed in my mind, but before I could answer, the ground trembled beneath our feet. A subtle vibration at first, barely noticeable.
Then stronger. It wasn't natural. It came from below. We raced to the excavation site.
The earth shifted and cracked as if warning us. Small fissures opened in the sand, glowing faintly with the same energy we had seen in the underground chambers.
Panic set in. Someone had disturbed the tunnels, someone above ground.
Using the limited instruments we had, we traced the disturbances to a nearby mining operation that had been expanding without knowledge of our secret. Heavy machinery had broken through a thin layer of rock that was part of the network's upper chambers.
Our hearts sank. We knew we had to act quickly.
Dr. Arlen and I descended into the first tunnels we had reopened, careful to avoid triggering the psychic defenses of the Guardians. When we arrived, we found that the upper chambers had shifted. The Guardians' energy had been disrupted, creating small rifts in the psychic field.
And then we saw them.
Shadows moving unnaturally fast through the tunnels. The predators had been stirred. Their presence was faint but growing. We had risked more than ever before. The world above had almost unleashed them.
I turned to Dr. Arlen. We have to fix this.
We have to protect the core, or everything will be lost. Using the lessons the Guardians had taught us, we synchronized our thoughts with the chambers, amplifying the psychic resonance of the Guardians' energy. The predators shrieked as the energy pushed back, forming invisible barriers that trapped them temporarily. The crystal pulsed with a golden light, stronger than before, responding to our combined will. We barely slept that night, focusing on maintaining the balance underground. Lena monitored the surface activity, warning us of any machinery or explorers attempting to dig too deep. Every hour was a battle between the Guardian's ancient strength, the Predator's fury, and our fragile human endurance. By dawn, the immediate threat had lessened. The mining company had been halted due to an unrelated incident, giving us temporary relief. But the warning was clear. The world above was too curious, too greedy. The buried beings, despite their power, could not act openly to protect themselves from humanity.
That duty fell squarely on our shoulders. Dr. Arlen shook his head. We're living on borrowed time.
One mistake, one wrong dig, and the predators could escape.
The core could be destroyed.
I looked at Lena, who was silent, her eyes reflecting both awe and fear. Then we have a choice, I said. We either continue to guard this secret, or let the world risk what should never be uncovered.
There's no middle ground.
We knew the Guardians had prepared us for this, not just to witness history, but to defend it. And as the desert sun rose higher in the sky, I felt the weight of millennia pressing down, reminding us that the buried beings' survival, and perhaps the survival of countless species, now depended entirely on us. The real challenge had begun weeks past, but the threat from above didn't fade, it only grew. News of rare mineral deposits near our site had attracted not only private companies but also government interests. Drones flew overhead, satellite images scanned the desert, and unmarked vehicles appeared along the horizon. Every curious mind, every opportunist, could unknowingly stumble onto the entrance to the underground network, and the consequences would be catastrophic.
We realized we couldn't rely on secrecy alone.
The Guardians had taught us one vital lesson: awareness of the buried world had to be accompanied by responsibility. We were no longer researchers, we were protectors, sentinels of something older than humanity. One night, while monitoring the surface, Lena spotted movement in the dunes. A convoy of vehicles was approaching, equipped with drilling machines.
They were professionals, precise, and relentless.
I felt a cold panic settle over me, knowing that any breakthrough into the tunnels could awaken the predators again. Dr. Arlen prepared the descent with grim determination. If they break through, we can't let them disturb the core. We have to act. Descending once more, we reached the upper chambers. The Guardian's presence was faint, weakened by the disturbances above. The predators, sensing activity, were restless, their psychic echoes vibrating through the rock. We had no time to fear. They needed our intervention. Focusing our minds, we strengthened the resonance of the chambers. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter as we merged our thoughts with the Guardian's energy. The predators surged forward, testing the psychic barriers, but we held, forming an invisible wall that pulsed with every heartbeat of the crystal core. Then, in the corner of my vision, I saw one of the smaller Guardians approach me. Through thoughts, images, and feelings, it conveyed a warning: there is more than preservation at stake. The predators are not merely a threat, they are the consequences of neglect.
They were once custodians who failed. Their wrath is born of imbalance.
Humanity could awaken the imbalance again. I understood. The buried beings had not only preserved life, they had prevented destruction across millennia. The predators were a force of reckoning, unleashed when carelessness threatened the network. If the surface world broke through, the predators could escape, and the cycle of devastation might begin anew.
We had to act decisively.
Using the psychic resonance of the crystal, we extended the Guardian's energy toward the surface, creating a subtle, invisible influence. The convoy slowed, the drivers distracted as if a powerful presence was interfering with their minds. Machines jammed, engines stalled, and finally, the vehicles turned away, leaving the desert empty once more.
But the cost was high.
The effort drained us physically and mentally. We staggered to the surface, hearts racing, minds fatigued. The Guardian's energy lingered in us, leaving a faint hum in our skulls, a reminder of the connection we could never sever. Dr. Arlen looked at us, exhaustion and awe written across his face.
We've only bought time, he said. The world will keep searching.
We need a long-term solution. That night, as we camped near the dunes, the largest Guardian appeared in a vision, reaching across the void of thought. It showed us the history of the buried civilizations in detail, how they had risen, how they had fallen, and why they had chosen the earth as a sanctuary. Humanity was not the first species to arrive on this planet, nor would it be the last, but we had the chance to respect the legacy, to protect it. "We must prepare," I whispered, echoing what I felt in my soul. "We must protect them, for the sake of everyone who came before us, and everyone who comes after." And so, as the desert night stretched on, we began to plan. We would create a network of safeguards, not just physical, but mental and psychic, using what the Guardians had taught us. The predators could be contained, the buried beings protected, and the knowledge preserved, but only if we stayed vigilant, always aware that one mistake could awaken forces far beyond our control. The desert above was quiet, but beneath it, the buried civilizations waited. And now, we were their guardians. The following months were a delicate balance of vigilance and secrecy. We fortified the site as best we could, not with walls or fences, but with knowledge and presence. The Guardians had taught us subtle ways to influence the surface, to mislead intruders without confrontation, and to strengthen the psychic resonance of the chambers. We became unseen sentinels, blending into ordinary lives while carrying the weight of an extraordinary responsibility. Yet even in our vigilance, the world remained a threat. News of unexplained seismic activity, odd readings from deep core sensors, and mysterious disappearances in nearby regions began to circulate.
We never acknowledged them publicly.
Any direct interference would risk exposing the secret, and exposure could awaken the predators. Our mission was clear: maintain the balance at all costs. One night, I felt a stronger pull than ever before. The crystal core's resonance called to us, drawing me, Dr. Arlen, and Lena back to the tunnels. As we descended, the Guardian's presence felt more alive, more urgent. The predators were restless once more, but this time, it was not a warning, it was a test.
In the deepest chamber, the crystal pulsed with brilliant light.
Surrounding it, shadows of beings we had never seen appeared, some towering, some delicate and small, all part of the buried civilization's legacy. The largest Guardian approached, projecting thought directly into our minds. "You have protected.
You have preserved. But now you must understand fully the purpose of the Earth as sanctuary."
Visions flooded us, countless species fleeing dying worlds, entire civilizations hidden beneath the ground, the rise and fall of planets, the predators' role as enforcers of balance, and the delicate thread that kept life from unraveling. Humanity had arrived late, but it had the potential to either honor the legacy or destroy it. The Guardians conveyed the final lesson. Protection required sacrifice, understanding, and restraint. The predators, if unleashed, were unstoppable, but they could be pacified through balance, through respect for the buried history. The crystal's resonance was a living archive, a library of life, and we were its keepers.
Dr. Arlen spoke first, voice trembling.
"We've seen everything, lived it. What do they want us to do now?" "To continue," I answered, feeling the crystals hum in my chest. "To protect, to teach, to preserve, but carefully.
No one else can know. Not yet.
Not until humanity is ready." Lena stepped forward, placing a hand near the crystal. It responded, pulsing like a heartbeat.
"We can't leave this responsibility half-heartedly. They trusted us.
We can't fail them." The largest Guardian extended a hand toward us, a gesture of final blessing. In that moment, I realized the connection we shared with the buried civilizations would never fade. Part of their consciousness, their memory, and their purpose now lived within us. We were no longer just humans, we were stewards of an ancient legacy, bound to the Earth's secret history. As we ascended to the surface one last time, the desert stretched endlessly under the twilight sky. The stars above twinkled with a familiarity that felt different now, as if they were watching us, approving our vigilance. The tunnels below remained silent, the crystal core pulsing faintly, the Guardians once again at rest, but always aware. We returned to our lives above ground, blending in, continuing our research, our interactions seemingly ordinary.
But the knowledge of what lay beneath haunted every thought.
Every decision we made, every step we took, was guided by the memory of the buried civilizations, the Guardians, and the predators who waited for balance to be maintained. In the quiet of the desert night, I could feel it still, the pulse of the buried world, alive and vigilant, waiting for the day it might need us again.
And we would be ready. We had found them buried under earth.
And now, we were their keepers, silent, unseen, and eternally bound to the history and future of life itself.